Sometimes the one labeled the black sheep is simply the one who sees the truth. Being born into a toxic family doesn't mean you're unlucky. It means you're being awakened. But it doesn't happen all at once. At first, it's just confusion. It feels like trying to breathe through layers of guilt, silence, and rules that make no sense. You grow up around people who offer love only if you follow their rules and call silence loyalty. But if you're a Sigma female, something inside you doesn't follow that path. You don't accept the dysfunction. You notice it, feel it, and slowly begin to see it clearly. Welcome to time-tested advice, where ancient philosophy meets the modern world. I'm your host, Alfred. Let's get started. Sigma females don't become strong by reading or copying others. Their strength comes from real experience, from having their boundaries pushed before they even knew what boundaries were. It comes from being the one in the family who doesn't pretend everything is fine just to keep peace. You never tried to be different. You just refused to lose yourself to make others comfortable. That's what being a Sigma female really means. It's not a label. It's a way of living your truth. This journey is not easy, but it has purpose. You weren't born to carry pain. You were born to change the pattern. You were placed in a broken family not to fit in, but to question, challenge, and finally free yourself. So, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong in your own home, maybe that's because you weren't supposed to. You were meant to rise above it. And whether you know it or not, you already are. If this message speaks to something inside you, if it reminds you of who you are deep down, click subscribe and tap the bell. This space is for people like you, ready to grow, heal, and stand strong. Let's begin. They grow up feeling like strangers in their own families. For Sigma females, growing up in a toxic home feels like watching everyone else follow a script you never got. Conversations feel fake. Love feels like a deal, not a feeling. And the rules change depending on what lies need to be hidden. From a young age, Sigma females feel a quiet distance between themselves and their family, not because they're trying to rebel, but because something in them won't fake it. They notice the blame, the guilt trips, the silence after someone tells the truth, and the pressure to stay quiet, and they just can't go along with it. While others accept the lies, Sigma females quietly disconnect. They watch and listen, but don't let it change who they are. They ask the questions no one wants to hear, and that's when they become a problem, not because they cause drama, but because they can't be fooled. This quiet strength makes them feel like outsiders, but it's in that loneliness that self-awareness grows. While others repeat what they were told, Sigma females begin to write a new story. They aren't shaped by shame or fear. They build themselves on truth. And here's what no one admits. The one who feels like the outsider often sees things the clearest. They're not broken. They've just stopped fitting into lies. That's not weakness. It's growth. And it's what makes a Sigma female so rare. They learn that surviving is more about the mind than the body. For Sigma females in toxic families, survival isn't about staying physically safe. It's about protecting their mind from being twisted. They realize early on that it's not the yelling that hurts the most. It's the way the truth gets denied. It's being told they're too sensitive when they speak up. It's the fake smiles and silent treatment. So they stop talking, not out of fear, but to protect their peace. They learn to stay silent while noticing everything. They watch closely but don't show their cards. Their mind becomes their safe space, the only place where their thoughts are still their own. They guard it carefully. They don't let others shape their reality. In a world that keeps changing the story, They hold on to what's real. They learn to hear what isn't said, to nod without agreeing, to emotionally step away without making a scene. They don't let the chaos touch who they are inside. This is why they grow up with such rich inner lives. While the outside world was unpredictable, inside they created clarity. Others might learn to fight. Sigma. Females learn to protect their truth. And that inner strength doesn't just protect them, it makes them unbreakable. They turn their pain into understanding. When most people get caught in toxic family patterns, they either repeat them or get crushed by them. Sigma females do neither. They take a step back. They look at the dysfunction without getting lost in it. Like a scientist, they observe instead of react. They start to see the same patterns over and over: the guilt, the fear, the way no one takes real responsibility. And when apologies come, they come with excuses. Sigma females start asking deeper questions. Not why me, but where did this all start? They want to understand the roots of the pain. They study how shame is passed down, how fear dresses up as love. They listen to what people say on repeat and understand what those words are really hiding. They don't just want to escape the pain. They want to stop the whole cycle from continuing. That's why Sigma females don't just break free. They learn the whole system, study the damage, and take the wisdom with them. They don't leave just to be free. They leave to build something better. They don't want revenge. They want peace that lasts. They want to love in a way that doesn't hurt. They want to speak their truth without fear. So, they go inward. They ask the deep questions. They listen to the pain like it has something to teach. And it does. That's what makes them different. They don't just survive the fire. They learn how it started and how to never return to it again. They understand the difference between family and relatives. Sigma females learn one of life's hardest lessons early. Not everyone in your family truly values you. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they belong in your heart. They learn this through repeated hurt. They see how people demand loyalty but don't give it. How love is used to control. How being family is often used as a threat, not a comfort. Eventually, they stop trying to get close to people who use guilt to get their way. They stop fixing broken relationships built on lies. They understand that just being related doesn't mean you have trust, care, or safety. And they stop chasing what's not real. This is when the Sigma female begins to choose her own definition of family, not based on tradition, but on truth, on mutual respect, on peace. She'd rather stand alone in honesty than be surrounded by people who fake closeness. She cuts people off not out of hate, but out of self-respect. She doesn't repeat herself to someone who crosses her boundaries. Her silence isn't cold, it's wise. It means, I choose peace, even if that means I choose space. And over time, she finds her real people. Slowly, people who get her, who don't ask her to shrink, who don't need blood ties to show loyalty. Sigma females know that real family is not always the one you're born into. It's the one you build with trust, safety, and love. Some doors should stay closed. At some point, Sigma females stop chasing closure. They no longer wait for the perfect talk or apology that makes everything make sense. They realize that some endings don't need explanations. Some people don't deserve to come back. And some doors, no matter who's on the other side, are best left shut. This isn't about holding a grudge. It's about being clear. After getting hurt many times, Sigma females learn it costs too much to keep the wrong people around. They stop trying to explain themselves to those who never understood them in the first place. They don't reopen conversations just to prove they've healed. To them, peace means protecting their space, not proving their kindness. People might say, but that's family, or people change. But Sigma females have learned that manipulation can look familiar. Nostalgia isn't enough to give someone access to your heart. Just because someone shares your past doesn't mean they deserve to be part of your future. So, Sigma females lock those doors, quietly, without drama. Not because they're heartless, but because they finally understand that guarding their peace is what keeps them whole. They'd rather be misunderstood than let chaos back in. They'd rather walk away than lose themselves trying to keep the peace. And they know the doors they keep closed are the very ones that protect their well-being. Letting go isn't weakness. It's a wise choice. Sigma females know when to walk away, when to stay quiet, and when to choose truth over tradition. They break down pain instead of carrying it. Sigma females grow up in emotional minefields, but instead of walking into the same traps, they stop and look around. They don't just survive the pain, they try to understand it. While others repeat the same cycles, Sigma females ask why things are the way they are. Why was there silence after arguments? Why did anger hide guilt? Why did discipline feel like shame? They start to see that much of what looked like love was really fear and control. They don't take that pain personally. They don't hold on to it like it's part of them. Instead, they step back and study it. What part of this pain is mine? What part came from someone else? What do I want to carry forward? And what ends here? That's when they become rare. They start acting like emotional detectives in families full of emotional reactors. They map out the patterns, understand them, and most importantly, they don't make those patterns part of who they are. They don't confuse inherited pain with their identity. By the time they're grown, they're not carrying trauma. They're carrying insight. They've taken time to understand what happened, and they've chosen not to pass it on. That's why they're calm. That's why they seem grounded. Because while others pushed the pain forward, they took a hard look and said, "This stops with me." They know that love isn't always safe. Sigma females figure out early that love can hurt. Not because it's meant to, but because not everyone understands what real love is. In toxic homes, love can come with control, silence, or guilt. Sigma females start to notice, "I love you" sometimes has conditions. Affection can be used to reward or punish. People say they love you while also crossing your boundaries. Eventually, they stop thinking that love always means safety. They stop believing that if someone loves you, they have a right to your heart. They start watching actions more than words. They learn that someone can care about you and still be harmful to your peace. And that's a tough lesson, especially when it involves the people who raised you. But instead of letting it make them bitter, it makes them wiser. They set clear boundaries. They don't give second chances just because someone's family. They expect respect and emotional safety, not just apologies. That's the difference. They don't love blindly. They love with awareness. If love comes with fear, guilt, or shame, they walk away, even if it hurts. Their independence was born out of need. Sigma females don't choose self-reliance because it sounds cool. They build it because they had no one else. Their strength isn't borrowed, it's built. It came from nights alone, from moments when the people who should have cared didn't. From sitting at the dinner table feeling invisible. From reaching out and getting silence back. They didn't get strong because they wanted to. They got strong because softness wasn't safe. They stopped hoping for apologies, stopped waiting for someone to say, "You deserved better." So, they became what they needed. They learned to calm themselves, to fix their thinking, to build themselves back up. They healed quietly, without help, without applause. People see them now and think they're just strong women. But behind that strength is pain, silence, and years of rebuilding. That's why they don't beg. That's why they don't fall apart when people leave. Their strength isn't a trend. It's survival. They refuse to play the role they were given. Toxic families give everyone a part to play. Someone's the scapegoat. Someone's the peacemaker. Someone disappears. Sigma females feel that early and, silently, choose not to play along. They see what's happening. They know when they're being pushed into a role that keeps others comfortable. They're expected to apologize, to stay quiet, to keep the peace. But they don't. They begin to rewrite the story, not loudly, but with quiet courage. They stop pretending. They stop agreeing to lies. They stop making themselves smaller for the sake of family unity. Yes, this makes them targets. People call them difficult, distant, dramatic. The family might say they're the problem, but they're not. They're just not playing the game. They choose truth, not tradition, respect, not forced loyalty. And while that path is lonely, it brings freedom. Because once a Sigma female leaves the role she was forced into, she becomes the author of her own life. They know how to love without attachment. Sigma females reach a place where they stop thinking love means staying. They understand that loving someone doesn't mean keeping them close, and being related doesn't mean they have a right to your time, energy, or forgiveness. They stop pretending that family is always sacred. They've seen how loyalty can turn into emotional chains. They've seen smart women stay silent for years because of guilt. And they've heard all the excuses, "But that's your mom," or "He's still your brother." Sigma females don't fall for it. They believe love should never feel like a trap. So they learn to love from a distance. When closeness becomes harmful, they say, "I care, but I can't let you hurt me." They don't need to yell or fight. They detach quietly, not because they stopped loving, but because they started loving themselves. They stop tying their hearts to people who won't grow. They stop giving loyalty to those who keep hurting them. Their love stays deep, but it becomes wise. They're not bitter, they're free. When you can love without clinging, no one can use your heart against you. They were born in loneliness, so they don't fear it. For most people, being alone is something they have to learn. For Sigma females, it's something they've always known. They didn't find solitude later. They grew up in it. Not just physical silence, but emotional loneliness. Being ignored, being unseen, having their feelings brushed aside by the people who were supposed to love them. They lived in houses full of people who never really knew them. They learned early to stop expecting to be understood. So, they created inner worlds where they could be safe. That's why they're not afraid of quiet. They feel most at home in silence. They don't need company to feel strong. Silence doesn't scare them. It grounds them. They've already survived the hardest kind of loneliness, feeling like a stranger in your own family. So now, being alone is not sad. It's strength. It's choosing peace. It's sitting with your thoughts without needing anyone to pull you out. They paid for that peace with years of pain. And now they guard it with everything they have. They heal in private because trust must be earned. Sigma females learn early that not everyone deserves to hear their pain. In a world where vulnerability is often used as a weapon, They become careful about who they open up to. They've watched people twist their words, mock their emotions, or use their honesty against them later. So over time, they start keeping their healing journey to themselves. They don't post every breakthrough. They don't share every scar. They cry in silence, grow in silence, and rebuild in silence. Not because they're ashamed, but because they've learned that healing is sacred. It's not something to be put on display for people who haven't earned their trust. They journal instead of vent. They go for long walks instead of long conversations. They find safety in quiet routines, private moments, and spaces that don't require explanation. And when they do decide to speak, it's never for validation. It's because they've already made peace within. Sigma females heal behind closed doors because they know their worth isn't in how loudly they show progress, but in how deeply they know themselves. That's why they come out of hard seasons wiser, stronger, and harder to shake. Because the work was real, and it was theirs alone. They don't chase love. They attract alignment. Sigma females don't run after people to prove they're lovable. They've already lived through the pain of trying to earn love that came with rules. They've begged for attention that was never freely given. They've tried to fix relationships that were never meant to last. And after all of that, they stop chasing. Instead, they start aligning. They learn that love isn't something you beg for. It's something that flows when values match, when someone respects your boundaries, when you can be yourself without fear. They no longer shapeshift just to be accepted. They don't shrink their voice to keep someone close. They stop calling people who never call back. They stop explaining themselves to those who never cared to understand. To a Sigma female, love must be mutual, real, rooted in honesty and respect. So she waits, patiently. And in the meantime, she builds a life so full of peace, purpose, and clarity that anyone who enters must bring the same energy, or they won't last. That's the quiet power of a Sigma. She doesn't chase love. She becomes so grounded in who she is that only what truly matches her heart finds its way in. To sum up, I'd like to say that some people are born into chaos not to become part of it, but to stop it. If you're a Sigma female from a toxic family, know this: your pain didn't destroy you. It gave you strength most people never find. You were given silence instead of comfort. You were handed confusion instead of love. And still, you stayed true to yourself. That's rare. That's powerful. You didn't become a Sigma to look cool. You became one, because pretending was more painful than being alone. Because once you saw the truth, you couldn't go back. You studied the damage, you broke the cycle, you chose honesty, even when it was lonely. And that makes you different. You know what it's like to feel unseen in a place that should have felt like home. But you still chose to see clearly. You chose truth. You chose growth. Your past didn't ruin you, it sharpened you. It made you wise, alert, and emotionally strong. You don't just survive, you rebuild. You protect your mind like it's sacred, because it is. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're deeply aware. And you're not alone. You're one of the few who had the courage to wake up and say, "This ends with me." If no one told you yet, you were never the problem. You were the one who saw it all clearly. If these words touched your heart, comment below. Toxic. Thanks for watching till the end. Your support truly means the world to me. Together, we will forge a path of nothing but peace and happiness. This has been your host, Alfred. I'll see you in the next one. Same time tomorrow. Until next time.